Hello, I'm Ariam, and I have a goal for March. In my reading in March, I want to really focus on getting through series and also reading authors and also reading from authors that I've read from before, and I want to read more of them, but the book is not in a series, or if it is in a series, it's not like a series I'm currently reading, it's the first in the series. So this is not a reading vlog, this is just an update vlog. I will have some, not update vlog, just an update video. I will have a reading vlog, at least one connected to reading series, but this is an update thing. And so what I want to do is give myself points. Will I use these points for anything? Probably not, but having points is fun. So I will lose 1 point every time I read the first in a series. I will gain 1.5 points every time I read from an author that I've read from before. I will gain 2 points when I continue in a series and 3 points when I finish a series. The reason I'm giving myself 1.5 points for reading from an author I've read from before is that what if I read the first in a series from an author I've read from before, and it's like I don't want to lose a point on that, or actually it would be net zero. I don't want to get net 0 points on that because that would be kind of disappointing, and I want to reward myself for reading from an author that I've read from before. So I can get half a point from that because still, tachlis, it is still starting the series if I do happen to do that. Obviously, I can read books that are standalones, you know? And so, also, besides all that info, I'm just going to put up here that currently on March 1st, I'm in the middle of 83 series. So I'm not really focusing on trying to get that number down. Obviously, I did say I'm going to give myself more points for finishing a series, but I'm not focusing so much on trying to get that number down as in just continuing series, like getting through series. Hello, it is 8:30 on March 1st, and I finished Game by Nancy Krulik around half an hour ago. Game is part of the Kitty Kazoo series, so that earns me 2 points. Hey, it's March 2nd. I'm still getting through like the short books on my TBR. I already said to start this month with the short books on my TBR. So it's 12:30 and I finished two more books. So one was I Want My Mummy by Nancy Krulik. If you noticed before, that is by the same author who wrote the Kitty Kazoo books that I read before. However, this is the first in a series, though, so I technically get 1.5 points for reading an author, but I lose a point for starting the series, so I get half a point, which brings me up to 2.5 points and 84 series. Then, I completed that around 7:45 in the morning. Then I went back to sleep. Then I woke up, and around an hour ago, I read Murder on the Disoriented Express, which is a novella in the middle of a duology. So I guess it's technically a trilogy. I'm not sure. We'll just call it a series. But I read it. That is continuing the series, so that gets me 2 points. So I was at 2.5 points, and now I'm at 4.5 points, and still at 83 series. Hey, it's still March 2nd, but it's now 9:12, and I don't know, I blinked out for a second. I read Fire, which is the third in the Lost Scrolls Quartet. So that is another series to continue, which is another 2 points. Hey, it's March 3rd, and last night I finished the last book in the Lost Scroll series, which was Air, which gives me 3 points for finishing the series. So now it's 9.5 points, plus I'm down to back down to 82 series. Hey, it's 5:50 on March 3rd, and I just finished Deceptive, which is the last in the Elusive trilogy. So that gives me another 3 points. So 9.5 plus 3 equals 12.5, and down to 81 series. Hello. It is 7:45 on March 4th, and I finished Batman number 484 around a quarter of an hour ago. Now, that may seem to you like it's the continuation of a series, but it's not so. Basically, there's a series I want to read in comics, and like all good comics, of course, we have to have a prelude, which I thought started from Batman number 484. Apparently doesn't. Apparently I have to read 5 more comics before Batman number 484, but I am counting it as starting a series, which does mean a -1 point, so now I'm down to 8.5 points, and back up a series. Hey, it is March 5th, 8:40 in the morning, and I just finished The Crown of Dalemark, which is the last one in the Dalemark Quartet. It's the last book in the Dalemark Quartet, which means I get 3 points. It's a 4:45 on March 5th, and I just finished Batman Sword of Azrael #1, which, like I said, is actually kind of a continuation because it's part of the Prelude to Nightfall that I read, but it's also the first in a series of itself, so I guess I lose 1 point for that, but gain 2 points. So, hey, what's up? It is 12:30 on March 6th, and I just finished reading Batman Sword of Azrael #2, so that's continuing the series, which gets me 2 points. Hi, it is the 9th of March. Yesterday I finished Batman Sword of Azrael 3, and I forgot to update. Why? Probably because I hate it. But that's for the vlog that actually follows this. This is not a vlog, this is just an update little thingy. But anyways, that gives me another 2 points. It's 9:30 on March 9th, and I just finished Batman Sword of Azrael #4, which I am counting it as both continuing a series and finishing a series, which maybe is cheating, but it's the only thing that makes sense to me because it completes the Sword of Azrael series, but I'm still continuing the Prelude to Nightfall series, which I'm counting as a series, even though it is actually a series because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. So that gives me 5 more points. It's March 10th, 10:05, and I just finished The Impossible Life of Memory by Laurie Halse Anderson 20 minutes ago. So that is not part of a series, but it is a book by an author that I wanted to read more of her books. That gives me 1.5 points. Okay, it is now around 8:20 on March 10th, and I just finished Batman Vengeance of Bane, which is a continuation because it's continuing this Prelude to Nightfall, which I'm counting as like a full series, even though it's bits of different series. So that gains me 2 points. However, it is the first in a series that's not connected even to this, but I am planning to read it because I really enjoyed Vengeance of Bane. That takes me down a point, and then actually earlier today, back at like 1 o'clock, I read Witch Switch by Nancy Krulik, which is a Katie Kazuba, which is obviously a continuation of a series. That gives me 2 points. Hello, it's March 14th. Shabbos ended around 20 minutes ago, and I read 2 continuation of series during Shabbos and finished both of them. First was a continuation in the Magic School Bus chapter book series, Space Explorers, and the other was a continuation in Tales of the Frog Princess series, The Salamander Spell. So I believe I was at 21 points last. These books get me 2 points. Okay, I just finished Batman Vengeance of Bane issue 2, which is also the last issue. I did not expect it to end that way, but that's the end of a series, so it brings me 3 points. Okay, so I just finished Batman #485, which is a continuation of a series, which gives me 2 points, bringing me up. Hey, it is 5 to 9 in the evening, obviously, as you can see from the window, on the 15th of March, and I just finished Batman #486, which is again a continuation of a series, so 2 points bringing me up to 32, and obviously staying at 82 series. Hey, it's around 7 o'clock on March 16th, and I just finished Batman #487, so that gives me another 2 points, 82 series, 34 points, I believe. Hey, it's a 8:45 on March 17th. This morning, the first thing I did was finish the book A Skinful of Shadows by Frances Hardinge. This is not in a series, but it is a book by an author I've read before. And so that gives me 1.5 points, which brings 34 up to 35.5. Then right now, I read Batman #488, which is obviously continuing series, leaving our series at 82 and bringing us up to 37.5 points. Okay, so once again, it is 8:45, this time on March 21st, and I read 2 more Batman comics again. This time was Detective Comics 654 and 655. So that is again leaving our series at 82, and we had 37.5 points. So that brings us up 4 points, so 39.5, and 2, total of 41.5 points. So, yeah, I've read another Batman comic, Detective Comics number 656, obviously, which gives me another 2 points, which is 43.5 points. Hello, it is March 31st. So let's look. I finished Winds of Fate, Where Mercedes Lackey on March 24th. And that is the first in a series. So that loses me 1 point. And how many points do I have now? I don't know. I didn't watch to the end of the video. Let me check. So I had 43.5 points, so I minus 1 point on that. So that gives me 42.5 points. However, Winds of Fate is the first in a series. So, but it is also a continuation series to a few different series, actually. It's a very complicated thing, almost like comics. Even worse, maybe. But that means that I get 2 points, so that brings me up from 41.5 to 43.5. Now, yesterday, March 30th, I finished Ghost from the Library, edited by Tony Medwar. Now, this isn't written necessarily by authors I've read before. I mean, actually, I think I've read all of the authors in it before, but the main point is that it's another, Tony Medwar puts out these series of, like, mystery short stories collected from the early to mid 20th century, and also, which I read one book of it before, and also this series, which is horror stories of the same time period. So this I was counting actually as another book by, another collection edited by Tony Medwar, so that is 1.5 points for me, and I said I was at 43.5 points, so that is 45 points. Let's see if we read some more Batman comics before the end of March, because I am in a deficit. Well, I am starting to catch up on my deficit of Batman comics. I just read Detective Comics number 657, which gives me 2 points, and I believe it was 45 points, so now I'm at 47 points. And I forgot to mention it in the other clip that Winds of Fate gives me another series, so I'm at 83 series. So I believe that we're starting out in any of the months on the same amount of series, but I did continue a lot. I read a lot of Batman comics, and that did help my continuing. Okay, hey, so it is April 1st, so this video is over, obviously. Sorry, Kit Kat. Sorry, baby. And I checked, and so I have 5 series marked as completed, 5 series marked as started, so it makes sense that I believe we began at 83 series and ended at 83 series. And I have 19 books marked as continuing a series, which is mainly Batman comics, but I still think that is great. So overall, I would call this a success. I didn't mark how many books were authors I've read before. Let me go count that quickly. Great, so I finished another Batman comic, Batman number 658, continuation. I think I'm at like 49 points at this point. It's crazy. I believe it was only 3 authors I've read from before that weren't part of the series, or, well, I Want My Mummy was part of the series, but it was the first one. But you know what? That's also good.